Close to you, if you want to sit next to somebody, just for this icebreakers, please, I want you to talk to your partner, okay? Just pick a partner. Let him know, what do you know about anxiety and depression? Just let him know, just tell your partner what you know about it, okay? It'll give about 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes. What do you know about anxiety and depression with our kids? Guys, go ahead and just kind of close it up a little bit. Close it up. Okay, who wants to participate? Who wants to share what your partner said or what you said? Who wants to participate? Okay. Correct, yeah, no, it is what it is. You know, everybody, even our parents, we all have anxiety somehow, and when it's left untreated, it can get worse. It can get worse, so it's really important to understand the signs of, you know, anxiety, depression, and how can we help you students? Because in reality, we all have stress. Somehow, some way, we all have stress, and it can lead up to other mental health issues. And today is going to be a day where you're going to learn about the anxiety and depression and how we can help our students. Okay? I've been working at this site since 2003, and I was a teacher here. And when I was a teacher, I used to see kids struggling. You know, kids that had anxiety, depression, all those issues, and it's hard for them to focus in school when you have this type of mental health issues. I started working in the main office back in 2010 as an attendance coordinator, and what I noticed since 2010 to now, 10 years, I noticed a spike on anxiety and depression. Because when I started back in 2010, it wasn't as bad as it is now. It's like wildfire. And so it's a fact that our students are suffering from this this mental health. And we have to make sure that we're proactive and we support our students and they get the help they need to succeed. And so today, you are going to get a presentation of a program called the SBCS Here Now program that's going to help you learn about, anxiety, depression, and all that stuff. Okay? Our staff was trained about a month ago. They got this a presentation of what it is, and next week, starting Monday, our students are going to get this presentation. Okay, and so they'll know what to do in, you know, with anxiety, depression, stuff like that. So I'm going to call out Margaret Seedor. She's in charge of this program, and she's going to give you it's going to be a 30-minute presentation, and her team about the SBCS Here Now program. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give it up for Mr. Chidas. He's been doing a great work here at Sweetwater High, and just his role is to keep us all safe, right? And when we think about safety, it's not only our physical safety, but our emotional safety as well. So today we're going to talk a little bit, not only about anxiety and depression, but specifically around suicide prevention. What can we do before a student is at risk for dying by suicide? So I'm Dr. Margaret Seedor. I'm a school psychologist in the district, and I also coordinate our suicide prevention efforts. And these are my partners from South Bay Community Services. So we have, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves.
Yes, good morning. My name is Marisol.
And my name is Andrew.
So Marisol and Andrew will be handing out tickets as you're responding to different questions and activities that we have. And at the end of our session, we'll ask that you come up to the table in the back, and they'll have some little gifts for you. All right, thank you. So what we're going to start with is, as Mr. Chidas was saying, we provided a training for our staff, and now obviously we're having some discussions with our parents and community members. And the South Bay Community Services team will be going into classrooms of our 9th graders or 11th graders?
9 and 11.
Both? Okay. So they'll be going into 9th and 11th grade classrooms and being able to provide a student education, which involves some videos. And they're going to give us the detail about what that program looks like. But today what we're going to learn is what can we do to recognize and support youth who might be at risk. All right, give me a thumbs up if you're ready. All right, thank you. Mr. Chidas, I might need help with that. Okay, so while they're getting our technology going, Mr. Chidas just did an activity where you talk to each other about what you were thinking about anxiety and depression. And typically we start out our classroom. So one of the things that Sweetwater has, which is amazing, is a restorative practice team and a culture and climate team. So what our goal is when we talk about prevention, not just even in terms of suicide, but in terms of mental health, is helping all of us feel connected and part of the school community. So the restorative practices that are going on here are targeted specifically at that, how to start each day. So when we come into a classroom, rather than sit down and we get right to work, how do we connect with each other as human beings? So having students connect with each other, students connect with the adults. So it might be something as simple as talk to your partner and whatever the topic is that we bring up. We call that emptying our cup. So we might ask students to say, hey, how are you doing 1 to 10? 1, not so hot, 10, I'm doing great. And it's just a way to kind of get us grounded and clear our mind and be ready for the instructional piece. I'm just going to go ahead. You guys okay if I just go ahead and start talking, and we'll provide a PowerPoint. So as a district, we have experienced students dying by suicide. And what you'll find in our presentation today is the prevalence of suicide went down until probably the last 10 years. And there's been a huge spike. Right now in the nation, suicide is the second leading cause of death for students. And in California, it's the #1 cause of death of students, more than any other health reason combined. So we know it's at a level of a crisis, right? And we know that there's not any one reason why, but there are things that we can do to prevent suicide. And we're going to learn about that today. In California right now, we have students aged 10 to 14. The incidence of suicide has increased, it's tripled in the rate over the last 10 years. And for our students, for 15 and 19, it's gone up 76%. So when we talk about education, we really need to talk about how can we help kids feel connected, how can we help them empty their cup, feeling grounded, and be able to get their brains kind of calm enough so they can engage in instruction, but also engage as human beings with each other, right? So some of the things that we'll talk about is protective factors. And protective factors are what are those things that we have in place that protect us from things. So if you think about physical health, what are some of the things we do to protect ourselves from getting sick? Exercise? Our identity? Diet, you guys want to give them tickets? Our diet, yes. Vitamins, right? So everything we do, we call that wellness. And so your principal here does a Wellness Wednesday, right? And really when we talk about wellness, it's our physical side, but also our psychological or emotional side. So when you go to the doctor, they ask you, they weigh you, right? They ask you how tall you are. They ask you how much are you exercising, how much alcohol are you drinking. They ask maybe about your stress level. They take your blood pressure. Those are all wellness checks and things we do to kind of take care of ourselves. So on the psychological or emotional side, we like to check in with our students as well and also teach them what are some things that you can do or you are doing daily to take care of yourself. Well, you know what? I'm just taking a moment and I'm stopping and I'm breathing. Because what we know is just breathing and taking a moment, whether it's meditation or just stopping and pausing. How many of you feel like you're always on the go? You always have something on your head, you're always going, right? And we're juggling a lot of things at one time. And that's where a lot of the anxiety, which then may lead to depression, happens, where we don't just stop and take a moment. So let's all collectively just take a deep breath. And what we teach students is the inside of your brain is where all the emotional side of your brain is. So if we can get oxygen into the middle of your brain, it actually is like a nice warm blanket to calm it down so that it can be at resting state and then be able to engage. How are we doing, guys? Oh, yay. Okay, that's fine. We can show. So we're going to show the Spanish version, and I will be speaking in English, and then it will also be translated in Spanish. So we have this presentation in both Spanish and English, so I apologize to those who are English speakers. We will be showing it in Spanish, but I will be able to translate it to English. So when we talk about suicide prevention, we're talking about all that wellness piece, right? Our emotional and our physical side. And what can we do to kind of also build our safe coping strategies? Because when someone's at risk of suicide, they aren't thinking, they're black and white. My boyfriend breaks up with me, I die. I don't get into this college, I die. It's all what we call black and white thinking. And I can't think of any other outcome than to die. And so what we know is most people who are at risk of suicide, they don't want to die, they want the pain to go away. So their pain is much greater than their sense of hope. So how do we get a sense of hope reinstilled? And some of that is just simply teaching them different safe coping strategies so they have a toolbox in which to pull from. Because maybe all these things I usually do aren't working, but here's some other ideas that I might have. Thank you, tech crew. So that's the whole prevention piece. And South Bay Community Services folks are going to talk to us a little bit about the student piece of how students, because they're going to hear first when their friends might be suicidal, how they can intervene, and examples and non-examples of how they can connect with their friends. We're going to learn what we can do. So that's a prevention piece. Intervention is the next piece of suicide prevention, of when someone is at risk and we think they might be at risk of suicide. How do we recognize that, and how do we connect with them with care so we keep them safe? And then the third piece is called postvention. And that's when an individual dies by suicide. You're probably thinking, well, what can we do if someone already died by suicide? For every one death by suicide, there's 200 other students who may have attempted. So we need to do what we call psychological triage and be able to connect and be able to re-educate students about what they can do when they're feeling like this. Today we're only going to be talking about prevention. Our hope is next year to talk about intervention and postvention. Sorry for turning my back on you. So before we get started, I just want to recognize that when we talk about suicide, some of us in this room may have thought about suicide before. We may have attempted suicide. We might know someone or have a family member who has. So I just want to make sure that we engage in self-care. If you're triggered or you can't have a conversation around this subject right now, it's okay. And if you need someone to talk to, we'll have our partners. You can just go ahead, and if you leave, they'll be watching you. They might just follow you out just to kind of do a check-in. You can say, just, using the restroom or making a call, that's fine. But every time we have done this presentation, there have been folks who shared their stories. So what I'd like is just that we honor each other's words and that we also have privacy. So if someone's sharing their story, that's their word, that's their story. Let them share it. Let's not perpetuate and share it with others right now. All right, and to be present, which I can see all of you are. So if we as a community can agree to all these agreements, can you give me a thumbs up? If you're not sure, maybe a sideways thumb, or if you're like, nope, I can't agree to this. And everyone, I need to make sure everyone has a thumbs up. Can we agree to this in terms of how we treat each other today? Awesome. So it's really important when we see in classrooms and schools to not say these are the rules or this is what we need to do, but we develop those agreements as a community. So students, we're not working at them, but with them. And then we're all going to hold each other accountable to these agreements. So if someone's breaking one of these agreements, all of us are responsible for saying, hey, wait a minute, I think let's just remind ourselves that we have these agreements. Okay, make sense? So it's a way of protecting because everyone feels that they have, and they do have a voice in our community. So just in terms of safe messaging, we want to be very mindful. Our language matters, right? So instead of saying someone died by or committed suicide, which could be a level of judgment, like maybe it's a sin or maybe it's a crime, is to say they died by suicide or they killed themselves. And some folks still have a hard time saying the word suicide, and that's okay. And there's a lot around suicide in terms of stigma. So we want to be able to use the word and be open with using the word. This is what we're talking about. So far in our community, we've worked very hard with local radio stations and television stations to use the word died by rather than committed. And they've been doing a really great job because we don't want to further perpetuate the stigma. The other thing is we don't want to say that someone was successful or unsuccessful around suicide because there is no success when we talk about suicide. So just some words to live up. Okay, so we have a quiz for you. And I can't read this in Spanish. Can someone read this for me? Yes, sir.
Si un alumno realmente intenta suicidarse, ¿no hay nada que alguien pueda hacer para detenerlo?
En inglés, por favor.
Sorry?
Can you say it in English for us?
Oh, yeah. If a student tries to commit
Die by suicide?
anyways,
Okay.
nobody can help the student.
All right, so this is a quiz. Your students are all taking quizzes and tests right now. So do we feel like there's nothing that we can do as a community? If they really want to die by suicide, they're going to do that. How many think, oh, there's nothing we can do? Give me a thumbs up. If you're not sure, give me a sideways. If you think, no, that's not true. Exactly. You guys are awesome. There's always something that we can do. And every single one of us, students, parents, community members, can intervene. Suicide is preventable. And that's the conversation we're having today, looking at what we can do for protective factors, and also what are some of the warning signs so we can engage with someone who's at risk. Okay, who'd like to read this one for me? Thank you. I love how you guys are helping me out with this.
Al hablar del suicidio, ¿podríamos darle a los alumnos la idea de suicidarse?
Can you tell us in English?
If you talk about suicide, could we be giving the idea to students to commit suicide?
Thank you. So if we talk about suicide, we're going to put it in their head. Do you agree with that? Not sure? No, I don't agree with that. That's a hard one. You guys are right. The answer is false. However, in the back of our minds, we're still thinking, if I bring it up, if I say the word suicide, I'm planting that idea in their head. And the opposite is actually true. What we know is if someone's at risk of suicide, they've been thinking about it for a long time. And what happens is if you actually say, hey, sometimes when someone's feeling that way, they're thinking about suicide. Is that something you're thinking about? What you'll see, they'll actually relax, and they will see you as a trusted person, that it's okay to have that conversation about suicide. And so you're giving that stigma a big kick and saying, this is an okay conversation to have. Who would like to read our next one? All right, I'm going to come all the way up here.
Para las personas que hablan del suicidio, hablar sobre suicidarse es pura palabrería y solo buscan llamar la atención.
So students, if they talk about suicide, they are just wanting attention. How many of you agree? Think that's true? Not sure? It's false. Exactly, it's false. And if students do want attention by using the word suicide, it's okay. Let's give them that attention. It might not be the most healthy way to ask our attention, but if they need our attention and that's the word they need to use, that's okay. Let's give them attention. Because they're giving us an invitation to have that conversation around suicide. You guys are amazing in here. Thank you. You're all good. All right, one more.
Únicamente los expertos pueden prevenir el suicidio.
What is it in English?
False.
It's false. Exactly. We do not need to be experts to be able to prevent suicide. Every one of us can be part of preventing suicide. Our students, probably more so than any of us because they talk to each other. And parents, I just want to share with you, be gentle on yourself. Our kids tell us, I don't want to tell my mom and dad because they have too much going on right now and I don't want to worry them. And there's a sense of shame. So sometimes by opening that conversation, they'll talk with you, but no, they want to protect you just as much as you want to protect them. So you're doing a great job role modeling for them. So that's why it's important that all of us learn about suicide prevention. So what do we do? Okay, suicide's out there. It's one of the leading causes of death of our youth right now. What can we do? And what we know is having a safe school. So Mr. Chidas, who is leading our safe school efforts here at Sweetwater, along with having a trusted adult, can decrease the likelihood that a student will die by suicide by 1/3. So think about that. Just having that sense of community, making sure if kids are feeling bullied or someone's mistreating them, that they can go to someone or they can stand up for themselves and say something. So we want to make sure that physically and psychologically they're feeling safe at school. And then being involved in extracurricular activities. So whether it's at school, in the community, with our faith-based community, having some sense of involvement can decrease our likelihood of suicide by 1/4. So these don't take a lot, do they? We don't need any special program. It's just being able to have a community that has that sense of connection and people feel seen and they're not invisible. So in 2017, our state saw that there's this huge need around suicide prevention. They passed a law that said that in any school district that has students that are grade 7 and older, that we need to have prevention efforts. And the prevention efforts are staff training, our parent training, and our student training. And our district has been partnering with South Bay Community Services for 5 years. So we've been doing a great job even before the law is requiring this. They are working on laws to ensure that we do education at a younger level. We're not sure where that's going. We do know that suicide happens as early as age 10 right now, but we also know that we need to be mindful of the developmental level of our students in terms of understanding the concept of death and the concept of suicide. There also was another bill in California stating that any school district with grades 7 through 12 needed to ensure that our students have access to resources. If you ask your student to look at their ID card, so all students and staff have these 3 numbers on the back of their IDs, so we can have them at all times. So there's a national hotline, and that's a great resource for all of us in this room, not just for the person who's at risk, but you're probably sitting here thinking, okay, my child's doing this, this, and this. How do I know if that's a typical teenage behavior versus I need to be concerned that they might be suicidal? You can call that number and just talk to someone. Say, here's what I'm kind of seeing, and they can talk you through it. Someone who's at risk, they can use this number. I've used this number myself. I've been in the district for about 21 years, and I've worked with our crisis team at the district, so anytime there's been a student or staff death, I'm the one responding, trying to help with the psychological triage on that. That's a lot to take on, right? So instead of going home and sharing that with my husband, sometimes I'll call that number and debrief with someone so I can empty my cup and be able to be present. And then there's a text line, 741-741. So I don't know about you, but my nieces who are young adults, it's hard for me to get a hold of them by phone. They're not really going to pick up the phone and call, but they might text or Insta or use Facebook. So our students, we think, if they text HOME, H-O-M-E, to 741-741, someone will respond right away. I tried it myself, you could try it as well, and I just said, hi, I'm a mental health provider in a school. I just wanted to see a little bit more about this text line. And they responded right away. So it's a way that someone can get help right away. The federal government actually is catching up in California. In October, they passed a law that they're going to have a 3-digit code. I was kind of showing my age to students because I was telling them, do you guys remember 411? And the students are like, no. They're like, Miss Seymour, 411's like Google. We can get any information we need on Google, right? So, but we have 911, we have 211, and there's going to be one specifically for suicide prevention. We're not sure the number. We're thinking it's going to be 988, but our hope is that that will happen within this year so that we don't have to remember all these numbers. We just know that 3-digit code. The numbers that you see here right now are posted around the school. The color for suicide prevention is this bright neon green, and you'll see that in different locations. Because we just want to make sure that anyone who's in need has access to help. So you're probably thinking, well, okay, great, here's what the federal government's doing, here's what the state legislators are doing. What are we doing as a district, right? And I have to share with you that we are leading the cause on this work. Our board has approved our district to be a restorative district. Here at Sweetwater, we have restorative practices teachers working on the prevention efforts of the wellness promotion and being able to help create a sense of community. So every single student and staff feel like they're part of our school community. That's amazing. And then on top of that, building safe coping strategies, how to kind of exercise our voice and use self-advocacy. On top of that, 2 years ago, our board passed a policy to say that we are going to engage in suicide prevention efforts explicitly. So we have a district coordinator, which is myself, and we have a district team. The District Suicide Prevention Council is comprised of teachers, parents, students, administrators, psychologists, counselors, and community members. We are in a process this year. We spent a whole year last year planning, and this year we've been training school teams. So there's an administrator, counselor, and psychologist from every school site that we've been training them to be available and build capacity at every school site. Because when I come to a school site or any district personnel comes to a school site, you may not know us. We don't have that relationship built. So we want to make sure folks that are on site, that are part of that school community, are always available for the prevention effort, as well as when someone's at risk and we have to intervene with them. So they've been going through that training. Our next one is next week. So we've been going through a lot of this training with them. We also are going to go through risk assessments. So when someone is at risk, how do you determine if they might need more care, or we have maybe an emergency where we have to pull in the parents or the PERT team, which is our psychological response team, our SROs, where they might have to help transport a student to the emergency screening unit and maybe get long-term care. But what we do for those individuals who might need more care, we're doing a reintegration meeting. We're making sure that when they come back to school, that we're going to see what can we do to support you, what should we not do, what can your guardians and parents do to help you and not do, and what can you do for yourself to keep yourself safe. And that is to know the signs, start the conversation, and then connect with resources. When we talk about know the signs, we talked a lot about protective factors already, right? And then there's risk factors, and we're going to go through those, and then also warning signs. So the protective factors, we know protect folks, right? Risk factors could put you at risk. If you've had these different things in your life, they could put you at risk for suicide. It doesn't mean you are going to be thinking about suicide or be suicidal. And then the warning signs. So think about your car, and you're driving, all of a sudden the light goes off. That means we need to pay attention right now, okay? One of the biggest protective factors that we identify for someone at risk, and you've heard me say it a few times today, is a sense of connection. Being part of a community, being visible, being seen. Something as simple as saying good morning, how are you? How are you doing today? Hey, great to see you. Just being recognized could be a protective factor. Bigger than that, we did some activities with Mr. Chidas as we started out today to engage with each other. That could be another protective factor where they're part of a school community, having conversations. How many times are we just sitting, like right now I'm just talking at you a lot, but I'm also asking you some things and having you read. But if I were just to talk at you the whole time, you could just sit there and turn off your brain, right? And same with students in school. So we want to activate them and engage them in the conversation that we're having. These are some of the risk factors. The number one risk factor that I want us to talk about today is about access to means. Access to means is the way that you might try to die by suicide. Firearms is the number one area that we need to have a conversation about. Most of the students that we've lost by suicide in our district have been by firearms. And the firearms have been in the home, owned by family members. And I'm not here to say that's good or bad, but if we have someone at risk, we need to do something about that. 100% of the families are like, I had it in a safe and my kids don't know the code. 100% of the kids know the code. So if you have a youth that's at risk, the recommendation is to get the firearm out of the home, maybe temporarily. Or the local police do have a lock that you can put on the trigger, so even if it is in the safe and they can get to it, they won't be able to pull the trigger because there's a key lock for the actual trigger. So I know it's a hard conversation to have, but it is something that we need to talk about. In the United States, firearms is the number one access. In other countries, it's other things, such as maybe propane gas, and they'll limit the access to that gas. So there's different needs and different things. So we talk about warning signs. So we don't have a crystal ball. There's not a way to say, oh, all these things are happening, this person is going to die by suicide. There is no one factor. There is no crystal ball. But there are things we can look for. So if you see a sudden change in your child, where they're usually very outgoing and now they're very quiet. They're usually really happy and now they're really angry all the time. They're usually connecting and doing activities and they stop doing their favorite activities. Or they're giving away their favorite items. That's a sudden change. That's our red flag. Does that mean they're suicidal? No. But it's something for us to check out, right? And see what's going on. So how do we start the conversation? So the first thing is stop and breathe, because it's hard to have that conversation. I've been training graduate students for over 20 years around this topic, and it's still hard to say the word suicide, right? And it's like we talk about it, and then when I go and ask my students, they're like, are you thinking about hurting yourself? No. Are you thinking about suicide right now? So having that conversation. And the way to start is to be able to just identify, what are you seeing? You know what, you've been talking a lot lately about feeling hopeless. Is everything okay? To, wow, you've been talking about being really frustrated and overwhelmed. Sometimes when people feel that way, they're thinking about suicide. Is that something you're thinking about? So there's a whole continuum. that you can ask the or start the conversation. You don't always have to say, are you suicidal right now? Because sometimes if you go right up and say, hey, I heard that, you know, if you're thinking this way, then you must be suicidal, you know, we need to do something. They're probably not going to be open to that conversation, right? So just connecting on the human element and just checking in. One of the things that, I'm sure your kids come home, you're like, how was school? Fine. What'd you do? Nothing, right? So I'm going to give you a little secret. Ask them, hey, how was school today? 1 to 10. 1, not so good. 10, it was awesome. Just have them give you a number. So give these open-ended questions. And they don't even need to tell you why. They say, oh, if I have one student who I was doing a check-in like this, and he says, I'm a 0 today. That was great. He was able to say, I'm not in a good space right now. He had some stuff going on, but guess what? He was still checking in and letting all of us know that he was a 0 right now, that stuff was going on with him. So he had that trust. He had that sense of being connected to a community. So every day, you can just do a check-in like that, and from our restorative practice teachers, we can give you more prompts like that to kind of change our interactions with our kids. They're not going to want to tell us, right? Yes, sir?
It's okay to be at 0.
Yes.
And in many different fields. Talking about school right now, but I can be at 0 more.
Yes.
If I open up, then there will be something.
Absolutely, thank you. Being able to stay on the 0 and maybe right in that circle, I'm not going to say why, but I know later on that Miss Sweetwater is going to check in with me and say, hey, you said you were at 0 today. What's going on? And so what my mom taught me is we have 2 ears because we should listen twice as much as we speak. So oftentimes it's not what we say, but just being present and just listening. Being a 0 is okay. And it might just be right now, and it might just be today, but if you are hearing a 0 every day, something's going on. But maybe like tomorrow I'm going to be at 8, so, or maybe in 2 hours I'm going to be at 10. Things shift, right? Our energy level, maybe we just had an altercation with a significant other, or maybe we're just exhausted and we need some rest and we haven't been engaging in self-care. So there's a lot of reasons. So being able to just be okay and being able to be open about it and get it out of our mind and share it with someone puts it out in the open and it creates that sense of trust. Thank you so much. So what we want to be mindful of, we said earlier about how language matters, right? So we don't want to say, oh, you're not thinking about suicide, are you? Because saying that is telling them that that is not something you think is okay, and it's going to close that conversation, right? Or, oh, that's so selfish, go ahead and just do it. Again, it's the judgment. The other thing is, the last piece said something about a secret. None of us can keep something a secret if it's meeting someone's safety. If someone's hurting them, they're going to hurt someone else, or they're going to hurt themselves. It's not that we're going to tell on them, but what we're going to do is make sure that they're safe, and we're going to connect them with the support that they need. You'll hear from my South Bay colleagues, that is the biggest thing that we're telling our students, is being able to tell a trusted adult, recognizing a sign and connecting their friend with someone. Because what we know is it'd be really hard to live with the secret that my friend is suicidal and then they die, right? So we want to protect all of our youth as well. So then, what do we do next? If someone says, yes, suicide is something I'm thinking about right now, great, let's connect them to someone. But what we tell our staff is don't send them to the office or let them go to the restroom. We need to supervise them, right? Until we can connect them with someone who can talk with them, screen them, and provide care. Same at home. Don't leave your kids at home if you think that they are suicidal and at risk. We have to work, right? So let's make sure we bring them to school. Let us know. We can help screen them and connect them to care. Or if you have a family member that you're not able to get them to school, make sure someone's with them, because we don't want to leave them alone. What we know is if you're driving down Highland the whole way, and how many times do you go down and you get green lights the whole time? It doesn't happen, right? We're always going to hit a red light. Sometimes we might get lucky and we get several that are green, but eventually we're going to have a red light. It's the same with suicide. If somewhere along the line someone had just stopped and connected with a person at risk, noticed the signs, and said something, we can be that red light that stops and helps and connects that someone so that they can continue to live. Like I said earlier, people who are suicidal don't want to die. They just want to feel hopeful, and they want the pain to go away. And right now, they don't see any other choice to get rid of the pain other than to die. So there's not one factor. Every time we've had a student die by suicide, I'm constantly hearing reasons. Well, it was because of this. Oh, they had a fight with their parents, or they broke up with their girlfriend, or they didn't get into the college they wanted. Those are risk factors. Those don't cause folks to die by suicide. They're just a piece of the story. But what we do know, those warning signs, if we can reach out and connect, then we're going to be able to help save and protect someone. Having said that, when someone dies by suicide, the reason for why goes with them. So we never really know the real reason. And it's complicated. There are several factors that really are around suicide. There's not just one thing. So I'm going to turn it over. I've been talking a lot at you, so thank you for your attention and thank you for your interaction. I feel really, I have a really big sense of gratitude right now for all of you being here for this conversation around suicide and being engaged in the conversation. Let's hear a little bit now about what are we doing with our students to help them understand about suicide and their role in suicide prevention. And so we'll have Andrew share with us.
Good morning, everybody. Like what was said, my name is Andrew, and I am from the Here Now program. So just to kind of give an idea of the message that we do give students when it comes to suicide prevention, this is the main message that we do provide with students, which is if they're noticing the warning signs or the symptoms of depression within either themselves or within one of their peers. We want them to acknowledge that something is going on. Maybe if they don't understand completely what is going on, at least they're acknowledging, hey, something's there. We want their friends to show their peers that they care in any shape or form, like if they need to talk at this time or if they need some space but they still need that support. We are there. We do encourage students to provide that. And then the final step is to tell a trusted adult if they're noticing those warning signs and it is severe. So we do want to let them know, hey, you're noticing these warning signs, you're noticing the symptoms. We want to make sure that your friend is safe, so let's make sure that an adult knows so that they can take action if they need to get connected to services. And how we implement the ACT message is, just because I'm not really aware of how this PowerPoint is formatted, but just to kind of, give an idea of how our program works, we do go to the classrooms within middle and high schools, and then we educate students again on the symptoms of depression, the warning signs of suicide. How we do that is that we first introduce ourselves. We start off a conversation on statistics, again to build that sense of this is a safe space, we're having a conversation about this topic so that people are more likely to come forward with what's going on or ask questions and that we can be there to provide that support. We do establish our presentation as a safe space. So at any time during the presentation, if they start to feel uncomfortable with the material that is being presented, they are allowed to step out. If they need a check-in with the counselor or if they need to check in with one of us, again, we are there to provide that support and there to do assessments as well. So they do watch an 18 to 22 minute video on the subject, on the symptoms of depression and the warning signs of suicide, which also includes, again, the ACT message, which is the main message we always provide with students. After the video, we do have a discussion, answer any questions that they may have, and then at the very end, that's when we would go ahead and we would transition to something we would call the response card, and that is their way of discreetly letting us know if they would like to meet or if they have any questions, and Marisol is actually going to go ahead and explain how that process would go.
Bueno, ya después de... sorry. I'm sorry. Right after the presentation and the discussion during the presentation, the video, and then the discussion, the students have the opportunity to meet with us. And for this school, again, we will be here next week, and we will be presenting and meeting with students next week. And so the students get this response card that looks like this. It has 4 boxes, and we ask the students to slow down and read carefully, because if we want to make sure they mark one verse that they really want to, if they want to meet, they mark the one they want to meet, or if they're okay, then they mark the one they're okay. A lot of the times the students rush through it and they just mark a box, or all boxes, or they forget to mark a box. So we do ask the students to slow down and read and mark. But the first box is to meet immediately, that they are in danger or they know someone's in danger, and that's the first box that we mention to them if there is immediate need. And when a student marks immediate need, that means that we will be meeting with them right after the presentation. The second box is I do want to meet with someone, either it's about myself or a friend, and that means that we will be meeting with them anytime in the week. And when they talk about a friend, some students are concerned of friends, and we call it a flag. And so when a student flags a friend, we ask the students if they want to stay confidential, and the students most of the time say, yes, I don't want my friend to know it was myself. And so we do either meet with them depending on the grade level, or if they're not in the grade levels that we are assisting, then we connect with the school's school counselor, and they check in with them. Now, the third one is I have a question, and we ask the students to write their question. And a lot of the times when we meet with them, they forget the question. And so that's why we ask the students to write the question. And when we meet with them, we answer their question, and we offer if they want to meet for us to check in. And so most of the time the students say, okay, yeah, okay, I can meet. And other times they're like, no, I'm okay. I just wanted you to answer the question. And then the last one is, I'm completely fine, I don't need to meet. And so we ask them to write their full name and their school ID and their grade level. That is the response card that we have the students fill out. Now, what happens is, again, the first box, we meet with them right away, right after the presentation. The second box is we meet with them during the week. And so when we meet with the students and there is a high risk factor that they are either actively suicidal, there's different steps that we do, but no matter what, if there is a risk, some risk, we do communicate with the parents. And you would be getting a call right away. And it's more for you to know that we met with your student, and of course for you to provide the support that your student needs. So that is what we do. And of course the school is involved in this process. When we do have students that are at high risk, we connect with the school's counselor, and the AP, the assistant principal, also knows. So we're not by ourselves, we are together with the school to provide support to the students and the families. And yeah, that's about it. I want to say that's about it as far as how this response card works.
Wanted to add one more thing. During our presentations, because you're now staff, we do take this very serious. We are also monitoring the class. So if we start to notice that any of the students do start to become very disengaged, if they start to become very emotional, but they appear to not be interested in the topic, or they seem very low energy, we do check in with them at that time and see if they do need to meet. And we also check in with the teacher to see if this is a behavior that's normal for them, or if this is something that teachers and staff would believe we need to check in with. So again, we are taking that extra layer of precaution during the presentation as we are scoping to see the well-being of our students.
So this is amazing because it gives us an opportunity to get into classrooms. So we're doing this for 7th, 9th, and 11th. So some of our parents are like, why aren't you doing it for every student every year? And the reason is we have been working with national leaders in suicide prevention. If we do it every year, then it's just like that thing we do again, and so kids might turn off. So what we know is we want to make sure that every youth that comes into our schools in 7th grade, they know about it. And they're activated as advocates around prevention and mental health. And then as 9th graders come into school, 9th grade is the toughest year in school because it's a huge transition from middle school to be able to help them get grounded and connected. And then 11th grade is also another tough year, right before you're going to college or thinking out what you're going to do after school. But also it's been, typically our 11th and 12th graders have been the students in our district who've been dying by suicide, so we really felt we needed to focus on that. So we've been very honored and blessed to be able to work with the South Bay Youth Community Services and being able to really provide this work to ensure that we're keeping our kids safe. And it's really nice when they're in classrooms because they're modeling how to have this conversation. The teachers are in this room so they can continue that conversation. So it's a two-tier thing, which is nice. They're seeing this video, which will tell them what to do and not do, but also being able to watch their reactions, as Andrew was saying. You might get students who react in a negative way, and they're angry, and this is dumb, and so following up with them, sometimes we find that they may be at risk, and kids are going to display it differently. So it's been a really great process. If a student is at risk right away, you're going to get a call if it's your child, and we're going to bring you in and be able to help connect. So it might be, if it's urgent, that our SROs may be transporting them immediately to the ESU, the Emergency Screening Unit. You'll be notified and meet them there, or you might be coming in depending on, but they will partner with Mr. Chidas, our school psychologist, school counselor, our site-based suicide prevention team will be part of that conversation. They do an assessment, we also do an assessment in tandem with them, and then we make sure that we transition the student back to the school campus to make sure that they're reconnected. So we've been doing quite a bit of talking at you. I do want to share a couple of resources with you. So obviously we want to make sure that the sense of hope is greater than the sense of pain for our students. These are some different local and statewide and nationwide community resources. On the far right, you'll see a bunch of apps, and those are things that your students can use. And we'll make sure we make this PowerPoint available to you to be able to access some of these apps. We also have several community agencies that we're working with as well. And I have a homework assignment for each of you. Are you guys game? All right, so you had to take a test and you guys all got 100%. That was awesome. So now you have a little bit of homework. And I'm going to ask you to go home and share with your youth one thing that you're grateful about them. What do you appreciate about them? What are you thankful for them? Okay? And if you can turn to a partner and share with them one thing you learned today and one thing you're going to do for your own self-care. So right now, just with a partner, share one thing I learned today and one thing I'm going to do for myself for self-care. And then your homework is to share with your youth what you're grateful for. So I'll give you 1 minute and then we'll reconvene. Okay, let's finish up our conversations real quick. And I would like to share that I am grateful for all of you to take time out of your busy days. I know we have a lot of different things going on in life. And the fact that you took a moment to pause and to be here today, to engage in the conversation, I appreciate it. Because you are helping us build a community of safety for our students. So thank you so much. And I can take any questions if folks have questions. So the question was, all right, so we're targeting our 7th, 9th, and 11th graders in our district. What if the student's a different grade level? And that's a great question. I forgot to mention that. So any youth that mentions a peer, if they're not the certain grade level, if they're 9th or 11th year, then the South Bay folks will follow up with them. If they're another grade level, they can follow up with them, or they can work with us as school staff to follow up. And if they are at another school, they contact me and I reach out to that school. So we've been able to close the gap. If they have a youth that or a friend that they're concerned about another school, we'll make sure they get connected with care. So.
Yo llegué un poquito tarde, pero no sé si habrán dado algún número telefónico con el que uno se puede comunicar con ustedes para alguna pregunta personal.
Yes, so we can make sure I will meet with you right after, and we'll give you that information. It's also in the PowerPoint, but there's a text line, 741, and you text the word home, and you can talk to someone right away. And there's also the National Crisis Line, which is, actually I can say it, but I can, I need my glasses. It's 800-273-8258. So we'll make sure we get that at the end. Oh, to get hold of people here on site, you would just call either your school counselor or school administrator. So there is a school counselor, school psychologist, or an assistant principal. So any one of them, we've trained a team at each school site. Does that answer your question? Can I meet with you after? Okay. Yeah, so if any of you are concerned about someone who's at risk, you can call 911 right away to get assistance. You can also call the crisis hotline, and you can call any school and talk to an administrator, counselor, or psychologist, and we'll follow up with that youth.
Mi hija ahorita está en el grado 10. Ella va a tener la oportunidad de tomarlo ya sea en el 11 o el 12.
Yes. So the question is, my child right now is 10th grade. When will she have access? So next year in 11th grade, she'll have the opportunity to participate. Yeah. Any other questions?
It's going to be our last question because we have to
back
the class in here.
Okay, so our last question is, are we coming back? Yes, we'll be doing this on an annual basis. You may not see me, but each school site, in September, our hope is every school, September is Suicide Prevention Month, and our hope is to have the training again in September. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all the support that you've given us.
We will be staying here if you have further questions so we can answer. And if you got a blue raffle ticket, please meet in the back too. We're going to do a little short raffle after. Thank you.
Okay, and just to wrap it up really quick, we have two very special guests that want to make a quick announcement. They are from the Sue High Foundation, very special to our school. Not every school has a foundation. And we have Ms. Marta Juarez and Dr. Liz Vazquez.
Hi, good morning. I'm here actually, Ms. Alma from the Parent Center invited us to come make a presentation today, this morning, to tell you more about the foundation, especially about our scholarship programs. If your children are seniors